Welcome back. Now, there's more certainty around the VAT Act. This thanks to a landmark ruling by the Constitutional Court involving Capitec and Sars in relation to the lender's 2017 deduction claim. Now, legal writer for Business Day, Tauriq Moosa, joins us to unpack the complexities of the case and what its outcome suggests for VAT principles moving forward. Tauriq, a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I think for the benefit of our viewer, maybe we can recap this case and how it landed up in the apex court here in South Africa.
So it basically started from Capitec trying to claim its VAT reductions over its unsecured lending services in sort of 2014, 2015. And what happened was, I think the total amount at that time was about 580 million it had made. And from that 580 million, it tried to claim about 72 million in VAT. So it wanted a reduction on its tax in terms of VAT. SARS did not allow for that 72 million rand reduction, and that was because, according to SARS, on its reading of the tax laws, that VAT came of what's known as taxable supply. That was Capitec's claim. And taxable supply is where you're allowed to make those deductions. SARS says this was not taxable because those unsecured loans were made free of charge. And Capitec said, but that's just part of the business. A lot of companies provide free of charge initial services that then customers pay in terms of security and insurance and other payments. And as a result of that, Capitec was concerned that because it couldn't claim that VAT, the ripple effect would have been that it would have had to start increasing the prices and the interest rates, which would have been to the detriment, particularly of poorer customers. So it initially was rejected, then it fought in the tax court where it won, but then it eventually lost. SARS then took it on appeal, and SARS was victorious in the Supreme Court of Appeal. And then on Friday, Capitec managed to appeal it, and on Friday, the unanimous court of Constitutional Court found in favor of Capitec and said that the matter must now be remitted back to SARS for a reassessment of that 2017 tax year. And SARS will have to determine how much of that 72 million Capitec is allowed to claim. But SARS is not allowed to reject the entire amount.
We know, Tauriq, that 72 million rand is small change for Capitec. This was an issue on principle here, and I'm interested to find out exactly what we now know and the precedent that has been set here for all banks, I guess, and those who provide similar products.
The primary distinction, which is what Justice Owen Rogers got into, as I say, for unanimous court, was this very particular term in terms of where VAT can be deducted in terms of a taxable supply and exempt supply. It's been a sort of ongoing discussion that's sort of been discussed on the peripheries of these tax discussions, and obviously SARS has rejected and so on, but nobody's really challenged it before. And as a result of that challenge, because the Constitutional Court, which is the final interpreter of the Constitution and also the African law, has said that now this is what we mean by taxable supply and this is what we mean by exempt supply. And in this particular case, just because it was offered free of charge is not a basis to view that as exempt and therefore not liable for VAT reduction. And that's going to have a ripple effect for, I imagine, a bunch of other vendors, according to legal experts.
I'll also ask you, Tauriq, and I think maybe the big one here is just thinking about SARS's journey with VAT. I think recently, actually, the commissioner was out to say that they're seeing a lot of VAT maybe issues there in terms of it being prone to fraud and mismanagement and so on. I'm wondering, here, if there's an opportunity for further clarity around VAT, period. It does look like, there are some tensions with larger entities like Capitec, but even the smaller guys could be getting it wrong.
Yes. So as I say, that was also one of the reasons that this was even heard by the Constitutional Court in the first case, was Capitec presented this issue as being one that was of constitutional concern, not just for itself, but for every other vendor that makes any kind of similar supply. So what tends to happen in tax matters, particularly when it comes from judgments, is that judgment becomes the catalyst for a whole bunch of new discussions and engagements, and then the commissioner will have to start making new explanatory notes, because as I'm sure you know, the Tax Act and the Income Tax Act changes in terms of regulations every year, and there's always clarification. So this will be a new basis for that, in particular when the reassessment begins with the commissioner, when the matter goes back for Capitec. So it'll start to have ripple effects there.
And before I let you go, Tauriq, it was a surprise to me that Capitec was the only party to this. I guess this was their deduction and their case. The other banks, any word around them and what they might have thought of the treatment of this specific line item by SARS and of the impact that has on their operations?
So unfortunately, because it was on a Friday, and most people are sort of switch off on a Friday in terms of and nobody really was able to respond at that time. However, as you can see from the piece, we did manage to get hold of ENS Africa, who are one of the big five firms, and they indicated that according to them and according to their clients, this is going to have a major impact for all of them. The reason, as you indicated, the reason that the other banks have not really commented as well, this was just brought by Capitec itself, and they were obviously waiting on the judgment before they would even comment. But of course, even aside from what the judgment said, it still needs to be interpreted and engaged with by the relevant authorities. So we'll have to wait on what SARS says as a result of that.
Well, Tauriq, a pleasure hearing from you. Thank you so much for unpacking this one for us. And that was legal writer for the Business Day, Tauriq Moosa.